Hey, hey, hey. Happy Thursday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch. Brought to you by, incredibly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, June 27th, 2024. This is live stream 1074. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, while I also tend to pontificate on a topic related to our hobby, which tonight I am actually going to share some ways to bring horror role-playing games to life at your table. In fact, how to make your sessions actually spooky. So we're going to talk about that after we tackle tonight's news. But of course, remember, we're just hanging out, having fun. We are certainly not engaged in rocket surgery or anything along those lines by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Also, because this is a live show, that means there is chat available. Now, it's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 60 minutes before you can take part in chat. Yet another way I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, but if you got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in, and I will do my best to respond. First out the gate tonight is the Madman. Cthulhu is with us, as is Semper Buffo, Lord Cost 2000, and W Forge, as well as Maddie C, are all chiming in chat. And I would not be surprised if the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is also lurking. So yes, the Madman and Miss Sarah D, and in fact, Flaming Heron's popping on in. Those are our three chat moderators. So behave yourselves. Gleeman RX is also popping on in. I'm going to take a guess. Chat's probably going to be a bit quieter tonight because of the action-packed debate. I figure I'm just going to check out the lowlights later on. I'll be fine. Russell Higgins is with us, and Dave in Ledbury is joining us. I believe this is the first time Dave has popped on into chat. Welcome aboard. Make yourself comfortable. And yes, Sarah D is with us this evening. So I got to say, a few more people in chat than I was expecting, to be very honest. And Game Cat is also popping on in. All right, let's jump on into the news, because Osprey Games has released a new Stargrave miniature supplement, and I've got the latest on Dead or Alive. A Stargrave supplement devoted to generating and running solo scenarios in which players hunt bounties across the ravaged galaxy, or perhaps become hunted themselves. It's hard to live with a price on your head, especially in the ravaged galaxy, where bounty hunters can be found on every planet. Most are amateurs, folk with a gun and an eye for a payday, but some are deadly professionals. A few aren't even motivated by the reward, but by vengeance, redemption, some notion of justice, or even just the pure thrill of the hunt. They're the truly dangerous ones. No matter what drives them, once a new bounty is posted, the hounds take up the chase, and more often than not, it all ends in violence. Dead or Alive gives Stargrave players all the tools they need to generate solo bounty hunting scenarios, including a variety of different settings and locations, a host of complications to be faced, and of course, a large rogues gallery of unique outlaws. With the random scenario generators in this volume, players can set up a great number of games of Stargrave with no two being the same, all without an opponent. This 96-page softcover is available now. It carries an MSRP of $30, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for $25. Yes. Should also point out, this is not the Dead or Alive release that had been out previously. So the other release, I think this is like a year or two ago, came out for Stargrave. It was called Dead or Alive, and it was just the mission generation. That's all it was. I think it was only a few pages long, and I believe it was also PDF only. That is not the case here. This is a full-fledged supplement, clocking in at 96 pages. I say it all the time. I'd like to kind of get into like Frostgrave or Stargrave because rules are relatively easy to grasp. They're not super complex. I did review Stargrave when it came out. I have not had an opportunity to check out any of the supplements that have come out since, but I also like the fact that it's skirmish level. You essentially need 10 figures on a side for your crew. Pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. And yes, these are pretty nice looking miniatures as well. I think these are from, I always kind of forget the name. I think it's Northwind Productions or Northwind Miniatures. Very nice. Very nice. Flaming Heron says they're not American, so the debate doesn't interest them. I can understand that completely. Chris Lundgren and Coco B, as well as Jody Connor, are popping on in. Jody says they're lurking. They can't really take part in chat. That's okay. So W4 says 96-page softcover for $30. I can't do it. Yeah, because normally the hardcovers are $35. Osprey has an oddball pricing breakdown. They really do. Like the PDFs are never half the price of the actual, physical book, which is the norm. They're usually like $5 less or $10. So if it's a $35 hardcover, the PDF is still $25. I don't know. I don't get it. Although I do like a lot of stuff that comes out from Osprey Games. And it's nice to see that Frostgrave as well as Stargrave still have a good amount of support going on, unlike some of the various different miniatures games and role-playing games that Osprey rolls out. Let's talk about some role-playing game news because there's an interesting-looking horror role-playing game which is up on BackerKit. It's about to close in on its home stretch for Last Pine Press. And I've got the scoop on the revised edition of Bump in the Dark. It's 1994 in the region of the fictional Ontonagon Peninsula, known as Iron Country, a belt of mining towns barely clinging to life. These towns are surrounded on all sides by the Sylvan Woods. It is the Sylvan Wilds, a forest known for old-growth pines and strange happenings. All of Iron Country seems to be teeming with the supernatural, a fact those in power would like to conceal. You're a hunter, and you've promised to keep regular people safe from the horrors and the darkness. You will investigate the strange happenings going on throughout Iron County. No, it is country. It's like, for some strange reason, my teleprompter is not clearing the camera in front of me like it usually does. So I'm not actually getting to see as much of the script as usual. You will investigate the strange happenings going on throughout Iron Country, attempting to put the pieces together and stop the monsters before people get hurt. Will you be able to stop the malevolent forces before their power grows too strong to contain? Will you stand strong with your found family and community, or will you sacrifice yourself to spare the ones you love? Will you be lost trying to find solace wherever you can? Inspired by media like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, X-Files, Twin Peaks, Supernatural, and more, Bump in the Dark Revised Edition is a game of supernatural mystery and action-packed showdowns with regular folk caught in the middle. It's a game about chosen family, protecting your community, and standing up to the forces, mundane and supernatural alike, that want to tear down all you've built. Bump in the Night is a complete standalone game using a streamlined version of the Forged in the Dark engine. No other books or supplements are needed. The revised edition comes in a beautiful premium hardcover with newly commissioned original art, as well as a free PDF play kit. The Backer Kit project is fully funded. You can reserve a copy of the hardcover with PDF for a $40 pledge, or grab just the PDF alone for a $25 pledge through July 7th. Expected fulfillment is winter 2024/2025. And from my understanding, I do believe that the PDFs will be available much earlier. So you're probably looking winter 2024, early winter for that, and then the physical books in late winter. Justice McPherson is popping on in, saying hello. They said they're expecting to be drawn into a Lancer game tomorrow, and the mech combat rules are making their brain spin at best. Yeah, a lot of people talk about Lancer quite a bit. It is not a system I am familiar with, but I think there's a lot of content out there for it. Tessie Trakey says, ooh, Americana backwood horror. Sign me up. Yes. Or as I like to refer to it, with all respect, hillbilly horror. Right? Let's move on to our next news piece. Exalted Funeral has a new adventure for the Mothership role-playing game. Yes, the first edition. Here's what I know about Resonant. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. 42.3295 degrees north, 74.1313 degrees west. Rostrum Corporation urgently requests immediate assistance under Galactic Corporate Mutual Profit Agreement 222. Nostrum will reward any rescuers per statute stipulations. Resonant is a science fiction horror adventure for Mothership, inspired by The Expanse, Havana Syndrome, and industrial negligence. Yay! The crew takes a routine job from Rostrum Corp, then receives conflicting distress signals during planetfall. Will they side with the colonists or the corporation? Either way, they won't have an easy time getting off Unlucky 11. Resonant includes 4 detailed locations, including the Rostrum Corporation Forward Base, Unlucky 7 Colony Outpost, and the collapsing dam. Well, there's spoilers. We know what's going on there. Dam's collapsing. There's an overland hex crawl across the surface of a craggy, sun-blasted planet. Symptoms of resonant exposure, an infrasound virus that slowly turns its victims into crab-like monstrosities. Nice. As well as a colonist generator to help fill your space stations, mining rigs, and derelict ships with interesting characters and more. This 48-page saddle-stitch zine with PDF carries an MSRP of $20. Interesting. So we were just talking about 96-page softcover for $30. Myself personally, I think a 48-page saddle-stitch zine, it's probably 8 inches by what, 5.5? Isn't that our zine size? With PDF for $20, and it's an adventure, I think I'd be on board for that. I think it's pretty cool. Looks interesting. You know, every time I see Adventures for Mothership, and I know it's not horror, but I always think of that movie with Sean Connery, Outland. You know, High Noon in Space. But there's just something about the mothership vibe that just reminds me of Outland. Like you could easily run an Outland adventure with Mothership. Although, to be honest, I have not had an opportunity to take a look at the first edition rules that are out. I would really like to check them out. What can I tell you? All right, let's see. We've got a few more folks popping on into chat. Let's see who we've got here. Ichiban is joining us once again. Very good to see you joining us. Says they just sent me an email. Sweet. Very nice. Very nice. And Kathy Evans. I think Kathy Evans was Kathy here at the start? I don't recall. I don't think so. I think Kathy's just popping on in. So once again, gotta say, got a nice rocking and rolling chat. In fact, Tony Urquides just strolled on in the door too. Cleveland One RX says, 3 cheers for corporate negligence. Yay. I just thought it was kind of funny. I was like, it's inspired by corporate negligence. Yay. So is their ship called the Exxon Valdez? Chris Lundgren says they're reading the TSR version of Conan in PDF. I got to say, the Red Sonja adventure they did was not very good. It was sort of like nothing really Red Sonja-ish. Russell Higgins, I don't think I said hello to Russell, says they'll take Farrah Fawcett in Saturn III instead of Outland. Yes, with Kirk Douglas chewing the scenery. Trying to come off, I was like, yes, I'm the stud and Farrah's my woman, which is actually the situation. I saw that flick. I don't even think I was in high school yet when that came out. And I remember my dad I want to say it was my brother and I, and it was awful. That was just an awful movie. And for what, 3 seconds, you got a little side boob? Oh, my gosh. I think that's why everybody was going. But, yeah, it was, So Tessie Trekkie says they're going to reach out early next week about getting me a copy of first edition Mothership. Sweet. Very nice. Very cool. Thank you very kindly. And yes, W. Ford says Harvey Keitel is a killer robot. Yes. Flaming Heron's now thinking of Bridget Nielsen. All righty, moving right along. Let's talk about another role-playing game zine because there's a new zine with a dozen short fantasy role-playing game tales. It is Summer's End and other one-page adventures. It is now out in print and PDF. Here's the latest from Questing Beast Games. Summer's End is a 24-page zine containing 12 one-page adventures for Knave 2nd Edition and other OSR systems, each contained on a single spread. 6 of these are dungeons to drop into your campaign, while the other 6 are 6-mile adventure hexes, local areas packed with action and mystery to spice up a hex crawl. Most of these adventures were originally released as Patreon exclusives, but have since been revised, redrawn, and redesigned to make the most use of the zine format. Some of the adventures include Summer's End, a mountain hex featuring rival factions, a tree of magic swords, and the lair of the summer worm. The Raiders of Wolfsea, an archipelago hex featuring weird pirate ships, fog wolves, civilized liches, and a treasure hunt. The Wizards of Sparrowkeep, a village hex surrounded by 4 wizard towers, whose occupants are engaged in a slow, passive-aggressive wizard battle for the affections of a local witch. The Alchemist's Repose, an abandoned laboratory overrun by fungal elves and programmable automatons. There's the Lair of the Keymaster, a puzzle dungeon with a chained, starving dragon and the schematics of the Loch Absolute, as well as Drums in the Deep, a sewer dungeon featuring a hallucinogenic spider, 3 lost teenagers, and a cult attempting to summon the King of Nails. The 24-page zine carries an MSRP of $15. You can grab the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for $7.50. So there you have it. Some new adventuring, well, I guess new if you're not part of Ben Milton's Patreon. Some new one-page tales for you to jump on into, especially if you're taking a look for some Knave 2nd Edition goodies. Tessie Trekkie says that Ben Milton does quality work, and Knave 2nd Edition is well worth a look. Board Games and Bourbon is joining us tonight. Welcome aboard. Good to see you. So let's move on to our final news piece. Ulfencairn, City at the Edge of Death, is now available in print and PDF for Warhammer Age of Sigmar Soulbound. And I've got the deets from my friends over at Cubicle 7 Games. Deep in the heartlands of Saish, the crumbling city of Ulfencairn teeters upon the precipice of destruction. Its citizens are desperate for salvation before the streets are swallowed whole by the encroaching Shyish Nadir. For an age, the Virkos vampire lord known as Radikar the Wolf has held ruthless control over the city, transforming this once proud Gothic metropolis into little more than a ravaged hunting ground for his thirsting court of monsters. Will the wolf's despicable plans come to fruition, or can a band of wayward heroes stand up against this unassailable foe and save the city before it's too late? Ulfencairn, City at the Edge of Death, offers players and game masters a comprehensive city guide for running Warhammer Age of Sigmar Soulbound games in the legendary Cursed City. This book includes a complete history of the city and its imminent future, spread across 3 narrative time periods: Ulfencairn in Peril, The Curse of Night Unending, and culminating in Radikar's Legacy. Rules for playing and running games using the updated Grim and Perilous rule set, and other optional rules and advice to help evoke the horror of the setting. Over 70 unique city locations featuring unforgettable characters and challenges spread across Ulfencairn's varied haunted districts. 6 fully fleshed out and mapped adventure locations to explore, including the Ibn Citadel Mega Dungeon. 8 brand new player archetypes and local sub-factions take on the role of a vampire hunter, a doomsayer of Sigmar, an elven exile, a former guard captain of the city, and more. There's also a bestiary featuring Ulfencairn's rogues, gallery of villains, and vicious monsters, sure to put any party to the test. The 240-page Ulfencairn City on the Edge of Death hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $49.99. You can score the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for $29.99. sense. And I should also point out that I will have a review of Ulfencairn, City at the Edge of Death, on thegaminggang.com, because Sammy's going to do the review. I might actually share a video, though, so you can take a peek inside. But yes, Sammy does all the Soulbound reviews. So she does written reviews. So there is that. 245 Trioxin is popping on in. Said they made 30-some NPCs from those Knave 2nd edition tables this week. Good stuff. So, Board Games and Bourbon says, I'm so glad to finally catch the show and be able to chat. I'm actually sitting in the Atlantis Hotel in Reno for RageCon. Cool. Sorry you're in Reno, though. Don't stroll too far away from the hotel. I'm just telling you. Yeah, I stopped in Reno a few times when I was delivering RVs around the country, especially I would go through Reno if I was heading to LA area, stuff like that. And kind of a dumpy place. Sorry, folks who live in Reno. I'm just saying. Most people don't actually live in Reno. They live outside it. But yeah, I had a buddy of mine who actually was a contributor to the website for a little while. They lived in Reno, and we hung out a few times when I was driving on through. Yeah, it's certainly no Vegas, that is for sure. And it's actually one of the reasons why I don't go to Gamma, because Gamma moved their yearly event from Vegas to Reno. So hopefully RageCon is worth the trip. Cracks the Bold is joining us in chat. Yes. Yes, very nice. Very nice. Fleming Huron says, no wonder they gamble. I don't know about that. Funny enough, I did pop into the casinos from time to time, zipping on through. And, Stephen from Roll for Combat says it's not in Reno anymore. Where do they move it now? Last I heard it was in Reno. Where did they go to, Stephen? I don't think they went back to Vegas. If they went back to Vegas, I might consider going, because it was all right. Although I got to say, the hotel that they had it in Vegas was a little on the rundown side. In fact, I think it was one of the hotels that's been torn down. It's in Louisville. Well, hey, I could go to Louisville and go see my buddy Herman Luttman, game designer extraordinaire, because he now lives in Louisville or just outside Louisville. Yeah, I'll have to keep that in mind. Unless Steven's going to be there, then I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. All right, so that was the news for tonight. Of course, don't forget the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to go visit Drive Through RPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep gaminggang.com around. And Steven says, I have a booth. You can work it. You would have a booth, I would assume. So, of course, we will talk about Gen Con in just a moment, and then we will jump on into our topic for tonight. But I also want to mention that if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Wetting the old whistle. And there are quite a few of you who stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang and make not so small donations, such as Joshua Edwards, our friend the Madman, Kevin King, Agile Monk, and others. Much appreciated. Really, really do appreciate that. And thank you so much, all of you who stop by either thegaminggang.com to use those banner ads and or visit paypal.me/thegaminggang. Oh, what the hell was that? Why did that just do that? What happened to our little video? Our little PayPal video. Hold on. Well, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign when the overlay disappears and is replaced by another video. So it's like, geez. Age is with us. Welcome aboard, as is Matthew Constantine. See, anybody else I might have missed popping on in? I think I have said hello to everybody. If I have missed you, I do apologize. You know, I always try to say hello to everybody. All right. Anyway, I was going to say I have been setting up my Gen Con interviews. So I already have some of them set up. In fact, I don't know if Stephen from Roll for Combat really, well, maybe he has a booth for Gamma. If you got a booth for Gen Con and you want to do an interview, I'm more than happy to set something up. Very nice. Very nice. So I reached out. I was talking to Wolfgang Bauer from Cobalt Press today, and I thought this was so bizarre. So I reached out this morning, and then this afternoon, this package arrives. Remember we were talking about Tales from the Valiant? I was like, oh, you know, I wonder if they're going to send me review copies of that. And also got the Game Master screen. Very nice. Very cool. So we will have some coverage of this. Sadly, I cannot jump into this until maybe Sunday or Monday, because tomorrow night we're going to finish up Sailors on the Starless Sea for Dungeon Crawl Classics. And then I have a Kickstarter video I have to shoot that is kind of last minute, that the folks over at Acheron Books reached out. They're the folks who do Broncolonia and what is it? Inferno and Lex Arcana. Well, they've got this new kind of like cartoon role-playing game that they're going to kickstart. And I just got the stuff today. And the Kickstarter is going to kick off on July 1st. So I have to cram. And then, funny enough, I also have another Kickstarter video I've already shot. It's been in the can for a while for a Kickstarter that is beginning also on July 1st. So on Tuesday, you will have 2 news pieces about those Kickstarters. That is for sure. So Steven says, you interviewing me? I don't have a booth, but I'll be around. I only interview people who are exhibiting. It saves me a lot of hassle. Because if word gets out, I'm doing interviews with people who don't have booths, who are not exhibitors. It's bad news. Bad. Anywho, so H says they're sneaking a peek while at work. So anyway, Cobalt Press, we've got Free League Publishing. I have reached out, of course, to my friends at Cubicle 7 Games. Might actually do Pinnacle Entertainment Group if I have an opportunity to. Although they've gotten kind of quiet lately. They were going to send me the that box set for what is it called? It's the kids on bikes for their East Texas University setting. I forget, it's big something. But never showed up. So I don't know. Maybe the bloom is off the rose as far as I'm concerned with them. Don't know. But we also might have an opportunity to actually talk with Pelgrane Press. For some reason, I always want to say, when I'm thinking of Pelgrane Press, I want to say Pinnacle Entertainment Group. And it's like, no, that ain't it. Yes, thank you. I knew the madman would have the answer. Pine Box Middle School. Yes, that is it. So I'm going to reach out. I'll reach out. I've got a couple of contacts with Pinnacle Entertainment Group, see if they want to set something up. So Elliot Miller is going to be my cameraman. So he will be hard at work Friday and Saturday. He's not sure if he's going to be there Thursday or if he's going to be there. So the thing is, he has to work, but he works from home. So he's actually going to work from the hotel. So the game plan is he comes down Wednesday night. I always get there Wednesday afternoon because I have auction stuff. And then I just kind of bum around. And that way I have my press pass. I don't have to be there first thing in the morning to grab it and, so on and so forth. So he's going to have to work on Thursday. He doesn't know how late he has to work. So don't know how much time I will have him as a cameraman for Thursday. And Sunday, he usually doesn't stick around. And we're not going down there together. We're driving separate. So I tend to hang out a little bit on Sunday, not a lot. But most years, he's out of there by noon. And I tend to hang out until about 2 or so. So like I said, working on that, working on getting the interviews set up. So very nice. Very nice. All right. So tonight, I am going to share some ideas on how to bring horror role-playing games to life at your game table and how to make your session spooky. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
To make your evening of entertainment more enjoyable, our refreshment stand has these delicious favorites. Hot and crispy pizzas.
Do you know what you've just inhaled? Air. Yes, but what about the dirt and harmful gases that come from our automobiles and factories and houses? Before you take another breath, think what air pollution may be doing to your lungs. Hold it now. Think, what are you going to do about it? Well, if there are groups in your town fighting to make the air clean, join them and support your local or state control officials. They have some ideas on how you can help. Keep in touch with them. They're the good guys. They want to keep those hats white. Or write to Clean Air, Washington, D.C. By the way, holding your breath is not the answer.
Grandma, it's Little Red Riding Hood with your Wilkins coffee.
I'm the bad wolf, and I just ate your grandma.
We'll have some Wilkins to wash her down.
My name is Maisie the Raisin.
And my name is Jake the Flake.
Oh, what a sweet combination we make.
Known to the world as post-raisin bran flakes.
We've got a story to tell you. It happened not too long ago.
Rah, 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 rah.
Here's Hotfoot Harry, the star of the track. Gets the meat of the year, but alas and alack. His body is willing, but his spirit is low. With a shot foot, he hits his own toe. He's big and he's strong, but he's feeling so sad. His pole vault is faulty. Too bad, poor Harry's so low that he can't clear the hurdle. In fact, in this race, he got beat by a turtle.
Hey, Harry, come on, try some post-raisin bran.
You'll be back on the track, a right happy man, 'cause the flavor of the raisins and the flakes combined makes the best kind of eating that a fella can find. The raisins are a-making all the flakes taste swell, while the flakes make the raisins delicious as well. One bowl and Harry is back in the race with a song in his heart and a smile on his face. He runs like a deer once again, he's the star. His broad jump's the longest by far. Yes, post-raisin bran makes a real breakfast treat. It's a blue ribbon winner that just can't be beat. I'm Maisie the Raisin.
I'm Jake the Flake.
Together we're post-raisin bran. That's us.
You'll love this great fruit and cereal treat. Ask Mom next time she shops to get post-raisin bran.
Last call for refreshments, folks. Go right this second to get something good to eat and drink to enjoy now or during the rest of the show. The finest quality ingredients are in the fixins of the delicious foods you'll find waiting to tempt your appetite at the snack bar. Extra special good hamburgers, wonderful donuts, ice-cold thirst-quenching drinks. Pizza generously sliced, steaming hot, fresh coffee, ice cream in many flavors. It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
How in the world did that turtle end up winning that race? I just don't get it. Just don't get. And then he eats the raisin bran and the turtle's nowhere to be seen. I don't know. I do not know. It's a little too weird. All right. So it looks as if somehow the little overlay got deleted. So let's make sure that I just went and rescued the right one. No. Oh, man. Hang on here. I'm going to fix this. Yep. There we go. Flaming Heart says, add turtle in the raisin bran. Yes, it's raisin and turtle bran. Yes. Clean One RX says, not Kermit had his grandmother eaten by a cannibal, then suggested the cannibal wash her down with some Wilkins brand coffee. Yeah, the Wilkins coffee commercials, in fact, just about all of the Jim Henson commercials back in that period of time had a lot of violence, a lot of humorous violence. Yes. So Sarah D said, yes, anyone else feel they were watching Home Improvement for a minute? Or am I showing my age? All right. So now that I've got that fixed, let's move on to tonight's topic, because I am going to talk about some ways for you to bring horror role-playing games to life at your game table and certain things that'll help make the session spookier. And I'm the first to admit it's not that easy to make games scary. In fact, I remember years and years ago, back when we did a podcast, one of the topics we had tackled was, could you actually make a board game scary? And my answer was absolutely not. that there was absolutely no way that you could have a board game that would actually give people the creeps. And Elliot disagreed. It was kind of funny. So we disagreed on a lot of things with the podcast, with the various topics. But as far as role-playing games, I do think you can. So Tessie Trekkie says they played an amazing Call of Cthulhu scenario on Free RPG Day. Turns out that rolling max sanity loss, all scenario leads to gunshots everywhere and a total party kill. Kabuki Kid is with us in chat. Good to see you, Double K. Double K's in the house. All right, so let's talk about a few different things. And when I talk about horror role-playing games, my focus tends to be on more horror, like supernatural sort of horror, not slasher, sort of gore and things like that. So, like, I know there's role-playing games out there that, like, focus on, well, in fact, there's, like, an offshoot of the Shiver role-playing game, which is, like, slasher movies and stuff. I don't really have any tips for that because, to me, I don't find that's not really horror in my book. But one of the first things I always mention as far as trying to put together something that's going to be scary at your game table is have a plan, stick to the plan. Unless the plan's not working, then throw the plan out. And what I mean by that is that I know there are all these storytelling games out there. There's various different role-playing games out there that have this whole, it's a group dynamic creating the story and the horror tale. And I'm going to tell you right now, I have yet to ever encounter a role-playing game where it was horror story by committee that turned out to be a memorable experience at all. And I have never heard anyone who was not trying to sell a game say that they had a memorable experience with that too. I don't see it. I don't believe that you can create a memorable horror adventure by committee as you play. I just don't think so. Now, of course, keeping in mind, the best horror role-playing adventures are going to be scripted. They are going to be linear. They are not going to be very sandboxy. Now, they may not necessarily be completely on rails. There may be a variety of different ways to get to a conclusion. But for the most part, they're not very free-flowing. So you want to keep that in mind as well. Something I also recommend for people to do if they are relatively new to horror role-playing games, utilize published adventures. Especially if you're playing, say, Call of Cthulhu or Trail of Cthulhu or a variety of various different horror games that are out there that have been around for a while. They should have a fair number of adventures. Like Call of Cthulhu's got a multitude of adventures out there. And I'm not saying you have to run them. I'm not saying that you actually have to, if you do run them as written. But if you're not familiar with that particular system's adventures, it'll give you a far better understanding of plotting and adventure structure. So with most Call of Cthulhu adventures, there is the layers of the onion that, all right, learn something, you're peeling one layer away to find something else and finding something else and finding something else. Whereas that's not necessarily the case with a game like Delta Green. Delta Green does have the investigative aspects, but not as heavily as Call of Cthulhu. And they're two vastly different games. Trail of Cthulhu is similar in its approach as Call of Cthulhu. There's just some tweaks as far as the clue finding and things like that, where it was not unusual for Call of Cthulhu adventures back in the day. If you were a keeper who wasn't going to kind of like roll with the punches, it was possible for the player characters to miss important clues and kind of be stuck. Be like, okay, well, now we've hit a brick wall. Well, the big aspect of Trail of Cthulhu is those things do not happen. But once again, I always recommend use a published adventure. If you're new to a system, it's going to give you an idea of plotting as well as the adventure structure. And once again, avoid creating major aspects of the adventure as a group. It's fine if you're asking the players, well, okay, so, you know, what town is this taking place in and things like that. That's fine. But the actual major plot points, if you're just coming up with this stuff as a committee, never ends up. I mean, I'm not saying that you won't have a good time. I'm just saying you're not going to walk out of there like, wow, that was one of the greatest role-playing game experiences I ever had, where many times with a really good horror adventure, that can be the case. So Age says they played with their sons and their girlfriends. One of them acted as the game master, read all the rules, and ran us through. Take a look. Oh, Betrayal Legacy. 13 sessions, played ambient music. Quite unsettling. I didn't really care much for Betrayal Legacy. I gave it, I remember, I think it was like a 7 out of 10, and I think it was kind of being generous there. I mean, it's fine. I mean, if you enjoy Betrayal at House on the Hill, yeah, I would think some people would like it. The legacy part of it is where I thought it was the weakest, because it is entirely possible to have certain like families in the game who are far more powerful and have things far more in their camp than others, and it becomes fairly unbalanced. But he had a good time playing it. That's all that matters. Cracks the Bold asks, is there a modern story-driven version of Call of Cthulhu? Well, there's modern Call of Cthulhu. As far as story-driven, I consider Call of Cthulhu to be story-driven. So, but there's a lot of Lovecraftian role-playing games out there that I'm just not overly familiar with. And one of the reasons why there are so many Mythos games out there is because there's no copyright. There's no copyright on Lovecraft's work. No one owns the copyright to H.P. Lovecraft's stories. So anybody can utilize the mythos in whatever ways they want. Something else I want to point out is don't shy away from one-shot or very short adventure campaigns that utilize pre-generated characters. And the reason I say that is if you've game mastered for a decent amount of time and you've run games with pre-gens and you've run games with created characters, you'll find that players tend to play a little more free and loose with pre-generated characters than they do with characters they created. Not to say that there's no investment with pre-generated characters, because there is investment. The players are playing that game. That is their investment. But they tend to risk a lot more when they know that it is a one-shot, or if it's a short adventure, it's not an ongoing campaign, and the characters have been assigned to them. So I do recommend trying that from time to time with horror role-playing games, because you'll find that it's not everybody just sitting there turtling up, right? They're like, okay, well, this is my character here. I'm going to go to the back. I'm going to walk through with my eyes closed, covering my ears. I don't want to have any sensory perception of anything going on. Cracks and Bold says, horror is about the only style of tabletop role-playing game that they think is a more story-driven rule set that would work to their tastes. Yeah, I believe it. I can understand that. Jack Hanks is with us in chat, as is John Muscola. Jack Hanks says, I love Delta Green. They've GM'd 2 one-shots, and their players loved it. GameCat asks, do you think you might write and publish a good horror adventure yourself? I don't know, to be honest. Probably not. Probably not. Because I tend to lift stuff from various different adventures that I've read over the years and things like that. So, Chris Lundgren says, they've never read any of the Conan books. Which one would I recommend to start with? Not the topic tonight, Chris. I mean, I'll tackle that when we wrap up. But that's like completely off topic. Something else that you want to do, and this is just my opinion, and I know a lot of people who run horror role-playing games are going to disagree with me on this. I do not use music, I do not use sound effects, and I don't mess around with the lighting. And I know there are people out there who are, they turn the lights down and everything else. I don't, because people need to see their character sheets. People need to see their dice, I don't use music. I don't use any sort of ambient sounds because I find them to just be a distraction. That I'd be more concerned with, is the right track playing that I want for what's going on in this scene? I don't necessarily want to mess around with that. But what I do recommend is paint pictures with words. And this goes for all role-playing games, but especially with horror role-playing games, incorporate all 5 senses. It's not only what they see, it's what they hear, it's what they smell, it's what they feel. Is there a taste in the air, right? So, as an example, supposedly, if you were to walk into a room where, let's say, it's just a bloodbath, that there would be almost a metallic taste in the air itself. Utilize that. Do things where, like, as an example, let's say the player characters are out and they're exploring around an abandoned house and it's pouring rain. Make it muddy outside. Make that mud sucking at their shoes. Maybe 1 or 2 of them actually loses a shoe or a boot in the mud. Do those kind of things. Make mundane things seem macabre. One thing that I like to do is I like to throw my players off while we're in the middle of doing a horror role-playing game. I use some techniques that I don't really access when I'm running other kind of games. But as an example, I will interrupt the player. So say one of the players is talking about what they're doing, and I can tell they're finished with explaining what they're trying to do or whatever, but they're still carrying on a little bit. Sometimes I will interrupt them with something. So just to kind of snap them out of it, or to kind of kind of give them the impression that time is of the essence. It's like something else I do, especially in horror role-playing games. I do not give my players a lot of time to decide what they're going to do. So it's like, oh, there's a shoggoth. I'm not going to allow them to sit there and spend 20 minutes trying to discuss what exactly they're going to do. So Kabuki Kid's going to go abuse themselves with the debate. Enjoy. W. Forge says, listen, smell something? Yes. Game Cat says you can taste the eldritch horror of the debate. Matthew Constantine says, they often play 1920s music while folks are gathering around the table. Other than that, they might have some low, semi-generic ambient music playing. That's about it. Yeah, I don't have a beef with people who do. It's just, I'm not a huge, fan of it. Like I said, I kind of find it to be a little distracting. Anyway, back to kind of talking about painting a picture with words. From time to time, use words that are out of the ordinary. Invest in a thesaurus. Use words like bloated and repugnant and antediluvian. A stench, right? It's not a smell, it's a stench. And always create an atmosphere and build upon it. I'm pretty good at kind of building suspense and ramping up tension. But it's also important to keep in mind that don't worry if your players are kidding around at the table. I know there are some game masters out there who they kind of get ticked off if their players are kind of laughing and joking around during a horror adventure. As long as they're joking around about what's going on, I have no problem with that. Because I run Call of Cthulhu. I don't run Delta Green, right? So like Delta Green would be intensity, rising intensity, more intense. And I could see people cracking jokes during a Delta Green adventure would kind of piss off a game master. Whereas Call of Cthulhu, even though it's a horror role-playing game, it is a bit lighter in tone normally than, say, a Delta Green adventure might be. Because there are some Delta Green adventures out there that are really dark. But don't worry about people kind of like breaking the tension from time to time by cracking a joke. But I mean, if they sort of sit there and suddenly start talking about something that they were watching on YouTube or TikTok, then it's like, oh, no. Go on. So, Chris Lundgren says each GM uses what works for him and his group. There's no right or wrong as long as everyone's having fun. Yeah, I agree. I got no issue with that. So, also should point out that not being afraid to break the tension is fine, but I also have to do things that are almost the equivalent of like a jump scare. It's got to like freak the players out a little bit. I tend to I'll do stuff where like if there's a bang, I'll bang on the table, or I'll like kick the table with my knee from underneath. As long as nobody's got drinks sitting there that could go flying or anything like that. So I tend to try to keep the players a little bit off kilter in periods of the adventure where you would think that, the tension's running high and things like that. And I tend to try to get the players to lower their defenses and then kind of zap them. So that is something else that I tend to do as well. Couple last things I want to mention. And one of them I'm lifting from Stephen King. This was something that he talks about in his book, Dance Macabre, or some people would pronounce it Dance Macabre. And that is never reveal the zipper running up the monster's back. So I don't share what the monster is. If it's a deep one, I give a description. From time to time, I might actually bust out a tablet that I've set stuff up ahead of time on, and I will share an image. But I always make sure that there's nothing, there's absolutely no text on there where it's like, oh, look. So that's the great old one. Oh, okay. No, none of that. None of that at all. But a lot of times, game masters will just be like, oh, okay, so 2 deep ones and a cultist are attacking. And it's like, no, don't do that. Kind of describe what the thing looks like. But once you start just throwing names of them out there, and, keep in mind, remember, if you're running a horror role-playing game, whatever eldritch secrets that your player characters are uncovering, it doesn't matter if you're running a Scooby-Doo game. Those things aren't common knowledge. So now I'm not necessarily saying that you should resort to the H.P. Lovecraft school of saying, oh, it's undescribable. Like a lot of his stories early on in his career. Oh, words couldn't describe it. Thanks. Thanks a lot. So that's what I mean by never reveal the zipper that runs up the monster's back. Because the first thing players are going to do is they're going to start going online and be like, oh, okay, so what is a deep one? Well, what are stat blocks for deep ones? You don't need that. You don't need that as far as like monsters and that. If you're running a particular role-playing game and you're like, oh, yeah, that's a boogeyman. Well, guess what? Some of your players are going to be online later on that night or the next day taking a look to see, oh, what are the stat blocks for a boogeyman in whatever game you're playing? W4 asks, how do you handle PC deaths at different times? Do players who've died just stay and watch the others who lived? Well, normally what I will do, and I will also point out that as a Call of Cthulhu keeper, I have fudged dice rolls for the story. Yep, that's the truth. I have fudged stuff for the story. There have been situations that the player characters should have all died, should have been a total party kill, where maybe I only let one of the characters die. Although there had been times, I have run games, one in particular comes to mind, where the party got wiped out. But it was because the players were just not on their game and they were not taking any precautions. They were just going balls out. It's like, what the hell's gotten into these guys? So they just made a lot of really bad decisions. And you can't have a role-playing game which features character death if you're not willing to allow that to happen in your game. Now, once again, completely different than, say, a fantasy role-playing game or a game that is far more open-ended with emergent play and kind of a sandbox sort of game. Worst thing is to sit there and have your players go through 3 sessions of an adventure and you're on the 4th session, which you figure, yeah, okay, we're going to wrap this up. And then all of a sudden, bad dice rolls for the players and good dice rolls for the game master are going to, cheat them out of their hard-earned victory, or at least a conclusion to the story. I don't do that. Don't know what to tell you. Now, as far as running Dungeon Crawl Classics, I already have my little dice tray out in front of my Game Master screen, and all my dice rolls have been public dice rolls. In Call of Cthulhu, that's not the case. I do not roll dice publicly in Call of Cthulhu because a lot of times I just roll dice for the sake of rolling dice to make my players worry. What's he rolling the dice for? But to get back to that question, what we normally will do in a situation where a character buys the farm, takes a dirt nap, we'll wrap up that scene, whatever was currently going on, and at the first opportunity, we'll put together a replacement character for that player. I didn't tend to have backup characters ready, but there were usually backup NPCs that we could kind of turn to that made sense being brought into the story as a character. Elliot's nephew, Paul, his characters got killed a lot. So, but it didn't take us that long to roll up characters. So even rolling up a Call of Cthulhu character for 7th edition Call of Cthulhu, if you have an understanding of the game, it should not take you that long. You should be able to rock it out in about a half hour, especially if, kind of have an idea of what that character's profession or whatever would be. Pretty easy, pretty simple to do. But no, I would not end the session. Now, if we were close to time expiring, and I've said before that I have absolutely no problem running a role-playing game session for 8 hours. If everybody's having a good time, I'm cool. But if we were getting to the point where it's we were going to wrap up in about an hour or so anyway, then I will bring things to a close. I am also real big on cliffhangers. So I love doing cliffhangers, and it doesn't matter what the game is. I prefer if I end a session 20 minutes early on a cliffhanger, I prefer that to, it's 10 o'clock. We need to wrap this up, being in the middle of something. I find that it keeps the players engaged in the downtime between sessions. So when I would end stuff on a cliffhanger, I would tend to have players asking me about the situation and things like that between the sessions. Whereas if it's just it's 11 o'clock, guys, we got to wrap this up. Not really. I don't. So Pete Strakulich says Total Party Kills get a special module in the afterlife. GameCat says the stack of backup character sheets to hand out works. Went through the whole crew of a German U-boat once. Trying to remember the name of that story. The Lovecraft story where they're in the U-boat. Yes, I can't remember the damn title of it. I like that story. It's not one of my favorites, but I do like that story. Matthew Constantine says, I've definitely used backup NPCs, just had the player flesh them out a bit. Man agrees, says they always like to try to end a session with a cliffhanger. Let's see. So other things that you can do to try to make things spookier. Vary your pace. Cthulhu says Dagon or Dagon. No, Dagon's the one where the guy, I think he's on a ship that's sunk by a U-boat, and then he's on this like little island that becomes a far bigger island. The story I'm talking about, the temple. Thank you, Flaming Heron. I was going to say, it's about the crew of the U-boat. And the captain's like diabolically evil. So they get their comeuppance. Pete Strackledge says, death proves to the players that their decisions matter. It's more memorable when the cost of life is paid. Don't cheat the players from the horror of losing it all. Yeah, I see that. I can see that. But once again, I'll give you a great example. So if you spent a year running Masks of Nyarlathotep, and you get to one of the grand finale points, because there isn't just one end. There's different ways that the campaign can come to an end. And if, let's say, you've got a group of like 6 players and you've got like 2 or 3 characters who have been there from the start, and you get to the big finale, and the way the dice roll out is it's a total party kill. I can't think of a less satisfying conclusion to your campaign than that happening. And one of the reasons is because when I run a role-playing game, regardless of what kind of role-playing game it is, I never let the players see the man behind the curtain. And what I mean by that is I never explain anything. So in a Call of Cthulhu adventure, and there have been many times I've run Call of Cthulhu adventures where the players just didn't figure out exactly what was going on. Or maybe they missed some things along the way, so they didn't take care of the whole problem, right? But they thought they did. I don't tell them anything. I don't and I would have my players ask me all the time, well, what was the thing about blah, blah, blah? And I'd be like, I'm not telling you. Like, keep the mystery. So being that kind of game master, and I have been that kind of game master from the beginning, is I can't even imagine having a conclusion to Masks of Nyarlathotep like that, where it'd be like, oh, this is it. This is the big ending. Oh, everybody got killed. Well, Jeff, how was it supposed to end? Can't tell you. I mean, that's how I am. It's just how I am. Flaming Aaron says that's how they handled their Enemy Within campaigns, but thinks the players worked it out eventually. A lot of times with role-playing game adventures, stuff that the players miss, a lot of times they don't know they missed something anyway. So for all intents and purposes, they're like, yeah, hey, all right, we did it. Yeah. It's like, not really, but, that's okay. I'm not going to tell you. Matthew Constantine says their Call of Cthulhu games almost always end with their player characters completely ignorant, running away from a fire. Even for beginner players who don't know, burn it down is the default. Yes. Burn it down, blow it up, bury it in a cave is another great one. And of course, you'll need explosives to block off that cave. Flaming Head says, oh, they worked it out when the portal opened in Bogenhofen. I like the enemy within. That's pretty cool. I think Cubicle 7 Games did a really nice job with their director's cut. The finale was not, I don't think they stuck the landing as well as they could have. But the ending is far, far better than originally. And I think part of the problem with the director's cut is that there is just too much going on. There are too many NPCs that you got to keep track of and all these moving parts that it doesn't quite collapse under its own weight, but it comes close. Pete Strakowicz said they had a total party kill with a player that was absolutely pissed. Pete felt bad for them, ran the next game, pulling punches a little. That player was unsatisfied. They only remembered the total party kill. Go hard. I understand where you're coming from. I truly do. But for myself, who does not have the opportunity to run role-playing games as often as I would like, and I certainly don't have an opportunity to play role-playing games practically ever, I'm not adverse to killing characters off. I am adverse to the total party kill. And one of the reasons behind that, and it doesn't have to be massive or low to tap, it could be anything. It just feels like wasted opportunities because the reality is in a lot of role-playing games, if it's a total party kill, you don't have anywhere to go from there. It's kind of stupid to sit there and then bring in like a brand new group of characters unless you're doing like a dungeon delve for a fantasy role-playing game. If you have a total party kill in, say, Call of Cthulhu, you really don't have the backup to be like, well, okay, so everyone who's kind of involved in this are all dead. So even the peripheral NPCs that could have been replacement characters don't know anything that's happened, right? So that's kind of how I look at it. But once again, I don't have any issue with, bad dice leading to the death of a player character. That I have no problem with that whatsoever. Just not a total party kill. That's it. That's all. Anyway, so I was going to say, the last thing I was going to talk about to like make games a little spookier as far as horror games is vary your pace. So when things are kind of slow or things are just starting to ramp up, talk normal pace like you would normally when you're running a game. And then as things get tighter and tenser, speak a little faster. Give the players less time to make decisions. It really helps boost the suspense. Because the reality is, with even horror role-playing games, it's not, like I said when I started talking about this topic, it's not easy to be scary. But it is fairly easy to make games suspenseful and to keep your players in suspense. So those are the things that I really tend to try to look at. So some of the main things, just kind of recap, is never let them see the zipper running up the monster's back, right? So if it's a ghoul, describe the ghoul. If you want, you can show an image of a ghoul, but make sure that there's absolutely no indication that it is a ghoul on the image you're showing them. So that's one of the things that I recommend you do. I also recommend that don't be adverse to throwing out a jump scare from time to time when your players least expect it. Paint pictures with words. And we talk about this quite a bit, talking about role-playing games. Expand your vocabulary. Buy a thesaurus. Go online to the various different websites that are thesauruses and learn some new words. Now, I'm not saying that you got to sit there and continually talk about how it was a gibbous moon. And you thought H.P. Lovecraft used that word too much? Read some Clark Ashton Smith. I was like, holy shit. It's like, how many times is he going to say gibbous? And all it is full. It's a full moon. Okay. But like I said, kind of stretch your vocabulary a little bit. And I'm not saying, sit there and act like you're Fraser Crane running a role-playing game. No. But, using kind of odd words sets the right tone. It really, really does. And, of course, make sure that you don't shy away from doing one-shots with pre-generated characters or very short adventures, 2-3 sessions with pre-generated characters. You'll find that your players will tend to risk more when it's not a character that they've sat and they've played adventures with for 3 months, which a lot of times improves the game. So that's something else. And when you first start out, if you're not familiar with the system, and maybe you're relatively new to running role-playing games, pick up a published adventure or two that are well-regarded. Don't just pick up anything. Check out reviews. See what people have talked about. See what's won awards throughout the years. Pick up one or two of those. Even if you don't run them, get an idea of how the adventures tend to be plotted, how they tend to be paced, and what the adventure structure is. Some role-playing games out there, all the adventures play out in 3 acts. Some are completely unlike that. But get kind of an idea of what the kind of default pace of that horror role-playing game might happen to be. All right, Justice McPherson says, always make sure to leave the party a good option to run. Yes. I dislike the mechanics of D&D 3.5 for making running harder and making losses snowball. I try to keep enemy damage in smaller bites. I have to laugh because I started running Massive Nyarlathotep again, which now, of course, we're not going to get back to that, simply because we don't get together often enough. And I don't want to be running Massive Nyarlathotep for 10 years. But I've mentioned before, my brother Greg, he's not really a role player. And he was like, yeah, okay, I'll play Call of Cthulhu with Elliot and my nephew Cameron and Elliot's son Brian. And we actually got Cameron's girlfriend to give it a try. And it was funny. Now, keep in mind, my brother doesn't play role-playing games. He played D&D years and years ago when he was in grammar school for about 3 months, and that was it. And right away, he's like the first person to be like, I don't know if we should keep going. I don't know. I think we should turn around here. So no spoilers here, but early on in the first adventure for Massive Nyarlathotep in New York, there's something that gets the ball rolling. And it's in a hotel room. And the investigators are meeting a character. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to spoil anything. And they hear noise. There's something going on behind the door. And right away, my brother's like, well, we better get out of here. I'm thinking, Well, if you guys get out of here, I don't know how this adventure is going to kick off. But I just thought it was funny because right off the bat, my brother's like, yeah, we gotta save our skins here. Flaming Aaron says players need to feel like decisions have consequences. Yeah, I agree. Madman says at times when the players needed to make quick decisions, I've broken out an hourglass so they could see the time running out. Creates a bit more urgency when they can see it. Or bust out your timer on your phone. 8 says they played in some games where the game masters used words I've never heard of and find this disconnects them. Probably says more about their limited vocabulary than the game master. Well, that's why I said don't come across like you're Fraser Crane running a role-playing game. But as long as, most people can figure out what a word means from the context. So, or at least that used to be a skill that people had. I don't know if they still have that skill, but luckily I still have it. But let's see, we'll wrap up with a couple more out of chat, and then we will rock on out. Pete Stracklich said they forged their table in the fire. They can tell when a dungeon master is soft, and they know it kills their imagination. If nobody dies, they know it's a bad game. I root for them, but I call a fair game. Yeah, that's cool. Like I said, don't misunderstand me. I have no issues killing off characters. I am just not someone who's going to bust out a total party kill. It's just not my style. It really isn't. Unless they've done something really stupid. Where it's kind of like, you sure you want to do that? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I gave you an out. I asked you again. But, so H says, my word of the day, gibbous. Yeah, go check out some Clark Ashton Smith. Yes. And the funny thing is, I like Clark Ashton Smith. There are a lot of cool Clark Ashton Smith stories of all different genres, too. That's what I thought was pretty wild. He does science fiction, he does horror, he does fantasy. And then after his parents died and Lovecraft died, and of course, Howard had committed suicide, he never wrote any of that stuff again. It was like, that's it. He wrote poetry. I think he also sculpted, if I remember correctly. He did write, but he just didn't write, weird fiction or anything like that. So, Flaming Aaron says, age if you take nothing else from the show. Pete Stracklich says that Clark Ashton Smith is definitely on their list. I should mention that if you belong to Audible, if you have a subscription to Audible and you get the free audiobooks that are part of your subscription, there are 5 Clark Ashton Smith audiobooks that I believe collect all his weird fiction. And you don't have to pay to download them. They are free. So that's how I originally got them. And yes, I know it's supposed to be, you can only stream it. If you can stream something, you can save it. That's all I can tell you. So, but Chris had asked, what is the first book that he should read for Conan? And what I would recommend you do is there is a 3-volume set that collects all of Robert E. Howard's Conan stories, and they're presented in the order they were published. Because with a lot of Conan collections, what they've done is they kind of put them in a supposed order chronologically. And Robert E. Howard had actually said one of the reasons why the stories jumped around all these different periods of Conan's life was that he wrote them as if Conan himself were sitting there just regaling him with stories. So the first book is called, I believe, if I remember correctly, it's The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian. It's either that or it's just The Coming of Conan, but I'm pretty sure it's The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian. And that will actually pick up from his first published story onward. I will point out that there is a point in time with the Conan stories that you can tell that Howard has just lost interest in the character. And he's only writing stories for a paycheck because the stories become very redundant. It's always Conan lusting after some beautiful half-naked princess or native woman or what have you. And he's protecting her from some outside influence. Flaming Heron says they can recommend The Complete Chronicles of Conan. Yes. But yeah, there's a point in time where the stories just fall off a cliff. And a lot of people don't realize this, that when Robert E. Howard committed suicide, he had stopped writing Conan stories. He was actually writing Westerns. So, because he actually was far more interested in writing like historical fiction, he had kind of gotten out of his like weird fiction kind of phase. But W4 says they're still waiting for Conan the King. Yeah, I remember when they shared kind of like a teaser for that. That never got off the ground. I remember the last Conan movie they did was okay. I don't recall it having like too many supernatural elements to it, though. You know, funny enough, they did a Solomon Kane movie not too long ago. It was okay. It wasn't awful. I was like, oh, really? All right, I guess I'll check it out. And it was non-terrible. So I was like, oh, okay. All right. Just like I saw Furiosa. I finally had an opportunity to catch Furiosa. I liked it. I thought the action was really good, really well done. I am hoping that they get Tom Hardy to do a Mad Max prequel. So I think that would be pretty cool. I like Tom Hardy. I think he's a really good actor. All right, so that is it for this time out. Hopefully, I shared one or two little tidbits that you might find helpful at your game table. But if you're watching live, thank you very kindly. If you watched live and took part in chat, big tip of the cap, because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company. But I also know that a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Really do appreciate you taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. I'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my upcoming first look at Tales of the Valiant from my friends over at Cobalt Press. Everybody enjoy the rest of your evening, morning, afternoon. the rest of the week, the weekend. I will be back on Tuesday. I'll see you next month. And as always, I certainly hope each and every one of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.